We'll continue Carlo's Christmas countdown with some pointers on packaging your presents.
Tonight on 1986.
Does anybody want to go home? No!
Yeah, I'm here because I want to be.
When the Korean War ended, Harold Webb stayed with the communists. Now he wants to be an American again.
I am very tired, and I want to bring my wife and children here.
I know I'm not supposed to bring up the subject of Helga.
And you shouldn't.
Secrets or no, the Wyeths are an artistic dynasty, whatever they paint.
I see no distinction between a portrait of a person and a portrait of a pig.
And she said to me, "You are under arrest for the sexual penetration of your infant daughter."
It was the ugliest charge possible, and for 2 years it created a nightmare.
If there's any reason, the slightest reason to believe the child might have been sexually abused, courts switch custody.
Good evening. This is the December 9th edition of 1986. I'm Roger Mudd.
And I'm Connie Chung. Here's something we understand. We understand people who defect to the West. The freedom of the West is infinitely preferable to the lives people lead behind the Iron Curtain. Because we believe that, we're always shocked when the defection goes the other way.
When the Korean War ended, thousands of Chinese and Korean soldiers being held prisoner wanted to go to the West. To allow for that, an armistice agreement gave all the prisoners the freedom to choose where they wanted to live. It was quite a shock when 21 Americans chose not to come back to the United States, but to stay with their communist captors instead. Now, one of the last of those who turned against America has, after 33 years, conceded he made a mistake in not coming back and now wants to live in this country again. But as Ed Rabel reports, those who remember what he did still call him a turncoat.
If you're old enough to remember the end of the Korean War, you certainly remember this.
Does anybody want to go home? No!
21 American soldiers who had been POWs in Korea stood up, sided with their communist captors, and refused to come home.
My name is Harold Webb.
America was shocked. They were called turncoats, traitors, commies.
This is a very happy moment for me, for now I'm free from McCarthyism.
And 33 years ago, Corporal Harold Webb was despised for saying what he believed to be true.
I can stand up and take part in fighting for peace and opposing war. Some may think I'm forced to stay behind, but on the contrary, I am here because I want to be. I'm here to fight for my rights and the rights of the American people. Had I gone home, this would have been impossible.
I'm tired. I just want to come home, that's all. And the State Department has told me that I am no longer an American. They've told me that I lost my citizenship as an American.
Harold Webb, now 55 years old, wants to live in America. Last year, after 33 years of living in communist countries, first in China, then in Poland, Webb returned quietly to the United States, ending up here at his sister's house in Jeffersonville, Indiana. He was finally home. At first, Webb picked up his life as if he had never been away, certain in his own mind that he still was an American citizen. He thought that after 33 years, what he did in Korea would have been forgotten, perhaps even forgiven.
Did you collaborate with the enemy?
No, I did not. I have never collaborated with the enemy. I expressed my views against war, and I don't think that's collaboration.
Do you think that what you did was a patriotic American act, you're staying behind?
Staying behind was not, but protesting was. That was patriotic. I think that was patriotic. I was used by the enemy by protesting the war. I made a mistake by going to China. They used me as a tool for making their propaganda.
Most of the 21 Americans who marched defiantly off to China quickly became disillusioned and trickled home. But Webb was different. He stayed behind and studied English in a Chinese university. 6 years later, he moved on to Poland, where he got married, settled down, and made a meager living teaching English.
We had no idea where he was. The last that we heard was that he was somewhere in China.
Webb's sister, Catherine, was just 17 years old when her brother refused to come home after the war. She and her Army husband were not immune to the outrage the country felt towards the turncoats. She was so ashamed that she turned against her own brother.
Well, we were embarrassed to say, in fact, to my regret, for from that length of time on, I have denied that I had a brother.
Meanwhile, Webb realized he'd made a mistake and wanted to come home. He wrote repeatedly to Catherine, the only person he believed could help him, but there was no reply from her. Years later, they both found out why.
Letters were mailed to me, to my aunt's house, but I did not receive them.
Why not?
Because my aunt was advised to turn the letters over to the FBI, and they have, I suppose, still the letters. I don't know.
You've never seen the letters?
I've not, no.
When he did not hear from his sister, Webb gave up trying to come home. He started raising his own family in Poland, the family he hasn't seen in 15 months.
I know that I shall never be able to do much for them. I am too old to do that. And everything that I do now is only related to get my wife and family here.
His wife and 2 teenage daughters are waiting in Katowice, hoping to join him soon in America. The reason Webb didn't leave Poland sooner is that Polish law required him to have an invitation from a relative. And Catherine, the only relative he could turn to, had no idea how to contact him. So for 25 years, he worked hard to blend into Polish life and unwittingly jeopardized his rights ever to return to America as a U.S. citizen. When the State Department examined Harold Webb's case, ironically, it was what he did in Poland, not his cooperation with the communists in Korea and China, that caused the department to say he's no longer a U.S. citizen. Officials here refused to discuss Webb's case on camera, but we do know this. Webb did things the department says can cost a person living abroad his U.S. citizenship. He married a foreign national. He failed to register his children as U.S. citizens. And worst of all, he became a citizen of Poland. But in spite of all that, Webb says he never intended to give up his U.S. citizenship.
I don't think what I did was un-American. And I think that taking citizenship to protect my family in that country and our security in that country, since I had to live there, and I had no idea that I would be able to come home. I had no contact with my family here during those years. I don't think that was un-American either, because I did not denounce my citizenship.
Stand by. In this half hour, we'll hear the story of...
Webb was so stunned by the State Department's decision that he decided to go public with his story. He appeared on a local television program in Louisville, Kentucky.
We were traders, we were collaborators, everybody in the newspapers, all the newspapers were saying that at that time. And I felt that I could not come back to this country.
His aim was to generate public support, but to his surprise, he triggered another reaction.
That guy don't deserve to be in this country. He needs to get out as soon as possible, and all like him.
Charlie Frost is livid, and he is not alone. These Korean War veterans were in the same POW camp with Webb, but they resisted their communist captors and came home. Webb's appearance on their local station opened old wounds.
Deserting his country, his family. Not to speak of the many that died on his behalf for his freedom, and then him having the nerve to want to come back here and enjoy what we suffered and the many that died for. Of all the nerve.
I want him deported, sent back. He chose his way of life. He made that decision in 1953 that he would stay there and believe in his communist doctrine.
I did not desert the Army. I did not desert the front.
Webb is baffled by their anger.
Can he tell me why we were in Korea? If he can explain it to me, then I can get down before him on my knees and say, and beg for his forgiveness.
Us old dumb country boys didn't have much education at all, but we're here. We had common sense, that's all it took, to say no to communism.
I am certainly not a communist, today wanting to come back to this country.
How can they take him away? How can they make him leave? He is an American.
Webb might still be in Poland if Catherine had not discovered by accident he was living there. An interview with Webb had been published in newspapers. And in 1981, when she and her Army husband were stationed in Germany, Catherine picked up the phone and called her brother. It was the first time they had talked in 31 years.
It was hard. It was very hard. I had tried so long. I'd been trying for years to contact my family. My wife and children were very happy also. They couldn't believe it.
What did you say to your sister?
I said, it's my sister. That's all I could say. I could hardly speak with her. I could hardly speak with her.
Love me tender, love me true.
In order for Poland to let Webb go, Catherine, now divorced, formally invited him to come back to the United States. He came alone, traveling on his Polish passport. Once here, he started the process to bring his wife and children to America by applying for a U.S. passport. It was then the State Department informed him that he was no longer a citizen.
It's going to happen. I really
The State Department has given Webb a year in which he can make an appeal for his citizenship. He must prove in part that in spite of what he has done, he always considered himself an American citizen. And that, of course, is something Jack Browning and the other former POWs think Webb is going to have a hard time doing.
When a man renounces his country, his government, and stays in a God-forsaken country like Korea, China, Poland, or wherever, would you think that he still intended to be a citizen here after 33 years?
He could be buried right beside me. I'm going to be buried in National Cemetery. And I might climb out and leave.
After 33 years, sneaking back into the United States and didn't hear that nobody heard the other side. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Webb, we're still here. We're still here and we'll be here. We'll do everything we can to keep you from getting citizenship.
I am tired. I am very tired. And I want to bring my wife and children here. And they want to come here with me. That's all I want. That's all I want out of anything.
This holiday season, serve the very best at any gathering. Serve delicious chicken tenders from Burger King.
Ain't nothing like the real thing.
Chicken tenders are all white meat breast fillets, not formed bits and pieces of chicken like McNuggets. Plus, they're cooked in 100% vegetable oil. So pick up chicken tenders from Burger King. This holiday, how could you serve anything less than the best?
Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby.
Pronto, Mario, è pronto.
Cheese, glorious cheese.
Che bella mozzarella.
Cheese, glorious cheese.
Drum in, ham, Swiss and Swiss.
Whatever you order in your favorite restaurant, order it with real cheese.
Especialmente de cheddar.
It's cheese, marvelous cheese, fabulous cheese, glorious cheese.
About 20 years ago, the first Litton microwave oven came to town. The woman who ran the cafe thought she'd give it a try. Pretty soon, the Dog and Suds had one too. Then the Legion Hall, the high school, and the ball field. One thing led to another, and today there are Litton microwave ovens wherever you find a kitchen. And even some places you don't.
Life's worth living today.
I'm a raisin broker. I know raisins, but I don't understand this Kellogg's Raisin brand. One scoop of raisins in a package is plenty. Scoop and a half is really delicious. Scoop and 3/4 will make your head spin. So when Kellogg's went to 2 scoops, nobody could believe it. 2 scoops? I tell you, in the old days, we'd get half a scoop, we'd be dancing in the streets.
Fiber-rich Kellogg's Raisin brand. 2 scoops is a lot of raisins.
This holiday season, a tribute to the American family. For 3 consecutive nights, you are invited to spend a year in the life with the sons, the daughters, the friends, the lovers, and you will become a part of their family, sharing their public dreams and private moments.
We're a family.
A Year in the Life premieres Monday.
I'm Brian Gumbel. Tomorrow morning on Today, we'll meet some of the world's arms merchants.
I'm Jane Pauley, also Omar Sharif and Jessica Lang.
Join us tomorrow morning on Today.
Many of us have a sort of museum inside. In it are hung the paintings we see when we close our eyes, the images we grew up with. And for Americans, many of those images are from a single family of artists, the Wyeths. What we didn't know about Andrew Wyeth was that for almost 15 years, this best-known of all American painters had been secretly working on an extraordinary collection of portraits and sketches of one woman, the mysterious and sensuous Helga. Wyeth still will not talk about Helga, but he will talk about his father and his son and the making of their American dynasty. The story had everything. America's favorite painter, a secret collection of his art worth millions, a voluptuous model known only as Helga, a wife who said the paintings were about love, and a son who found the paintings extraordinary.
I think what it probably really totally blew out of the water was the fact that Andrew Wyeth was some old prosaic painter who was continuing painting barns and whatnot and fields with women crawling across it.
The Helga turmoil has subsided now. The Brandywine River Valley west of Wilmington is back to normal now, and Andrew Newell Wyeth, 69, of Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania, is willing to talk now, so long as it's not about Helga.
I know I'm not supposed to bring up the subject of Helga.
And you shouldn't.
I want to ask one question about it. What was it like around here in the Brandywine River Valley after the New York Times ran the Helga story?
I wasn't here, so I don't know.
Let me try one. What did the Helga thing tell you about the role of the mass media and the art world?
Well, I really don't want to answer that.
Nonetheless, Wyeth is allowing 3 of his Helgas to be part of next year's world tour of 3 generations of Wyeth paintings, opening in Leningrad and closing at the Brandywine River Museum in Chadds Ford. The first generation is, of course, the founder of the Wyeth dynasty, N.C. Wyeth, who helped establish the Brandywine School of Painting, but who became famous for his illustrations in the Scribner editions of Kidnapped, The Last of the Mohegans, and The Black Arrow. At the Brandywine Museum, the second and third generation Wyeths insist that N.C. was more than just an illustrator.
I think he's a very unique painter that painted a romantic era, but with the vitality of the day that he conceived the thought to paint it. I mean, he painted the light of Chadds Ford in these pictures.
The third generation Wyeth is James Browning Wyeth, 40 years old and known to all as Jamie.
Certainly my grandfather and my father are 2 of the most misunderstood painters and misinterpreted. I think with N.C. Wyeth, everybody's perception is these great swashbuckler and pirates and so forth. And you look at this, and it's rather delicately done. I mean, the whole thing is rather sensitive, and I think, certainly with my father, I think a lot of perception is he's a painter of barns and fields and so forth, and certainly the last 15 years, he certainly hasn't done barns and fields, so.
Do you feel misunderstood, Mr. Wyeth?
Of course, I think it's great to be misunderstood. I think it gives you utter freedom, really.
From the beginning, many critics would not accept Andrew Wyeth because his work was so romantic and so American.
What do you make of your critics, Andy?
Oh, I think they have probably very valid reasons to feel the way they do about me. I don't, it did disturb me when I was younger, but at my age, it doesn't bother me anymore. I think they want to fix it up to suit themselves. They're afraid of my simplicity in my work.
Whether the critics fear the Wyeth simplicity or simply resent the Wyeth popularity, this family has no equal in American art. There is a certain Or of artistic royalty to the name Wyeth in America, isn't there?
I don't think it's royalty.
Well, I don't mean that in a bad sense.
No, but I think, obviously, it affects me that my grandfather painted and my father paints, and you learn from, from their mistakes and then their triumphs and so forth. It's a lot of luggage. I think painting is difficult enough. All those other considerations you were talking about are irrelevant to when I'm in the studio. I mean, all that
But you
stuff.
sit down alone
exactly.
and face
when you
the panel.
close the studio door, all the ghosts and all the things, they're outside the door.
But Jamie's door is rarely closed. He's always outside, making the animals on his farm his subjects. Real portrait sitters.
So this is not the pig or a pig, but just pig.
Yeah, portrait of pig.
Of pig. Why do you say just pig?
Because that's exactly what it is.
Just tell me what you think, Andy, of those brushstrokes.
Well, I love it because it's very expressive of the organic quality of the animal itself. And I think Jamie went wholehearted for the thing and has really done the definitive pig picture. To my mind, I wouldn't think of painting a pig. Done it.
I see no distinction between a portrait of a person and a portrait of a pig. You spend a month with any sort of animal, every day, all day long, you're going to get to know them pretty well, and they you. And, I mean, that's what thrilled me. And so, I mean, yes, I consider that a portrait as much as my portrait of President Kennedy.
Pig measures 4 by 7 feet. John F. Kennedy, a mere 16 by 29 inches. Hardly big enough to be considered presidential.
It bothered a lot of people. I mean, you must remember at the time I did that, John F. Kennedy was this idealized, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, struck-down president. I mean, who could do no wrong. And here I did this portrait of a man whose one eye wandered. He was bloated from the medicine. I mean, that's what fascinated me the more I studied President Kennedy towards the end of his life. I mean, the toll the office had taken on him and so forth. Well, when the painting was reproduced, it just horrified people. Bobby Kennedy hated the portrait.
But Jamie has never been accused of painting for mere likeness, whether it be Rudolf Nureyev, or Andy Warhol, or his own father. Neither is Andrew's portrait of Jamie at age 5 a mere likeness, or his wife Betsy, dozing despite the distant thunder, or his dog Nellie, the night sleeper. As with Chad's Ford, so too the Wyeths share a family and artistic attachment to the central coast of Maine. Grandfather N.C. Wyeth began spending summers there in 1920. He kept a studio in Port Clyde. Jamie now has his summer home on Monhegan Island, 10 miles out to sea. But rarely does he paint the sea as the subject itself. And Andrew remembers the childhood joys of floating over the coastal ledges. It inspired his 1982 painting called Adrift.
That is a very old friend of mine in Maine, Walter Anderson.
But tell us, sorry, didn't you, as a child, you and he used to go in dories over that?
We used to drift indoors off these ledges, and thought it was great fun to do. Well, now Walt is up in years, and he still loves to not do that particularly, but I thought that he's getting up in years, and I thought it was very fitting that the silence
And what,
adrift.
The silence of being adrift.
Those rocky ledges with names like Old Woman Ledge still provoke laughter.
Clean it up?
No.
Can you go?
Well, there's a minister on Monhegan where I live. It's the island way offshore near where this is. And the minister was to give a sermon on the island. They have ministers come out from the mainland. And he was late that Sunday morning, and he arrived, and the congregation was there, and he apologized. He said he had, what was he?
He got on an old woman, couldn't get on. Now he's sticking to this ledge.
Andrew says he deliberately avoided the more traveled road to Europe and New York. He says he sees no reason to spread out beyond Maine and Chad's Ford.
I undoubtedly took a road less traveled because I painted the things around me and in rather monochrome way, which certainly bothered my father a great deal, that I didn't use more flamboyant color, but I was painting the country that I grew up in, born in, and I saw no reason to exaggerate the way I felt about it. I know one of the last things my father said to me, he said, Andrew, I'm very worried about your future because your color is subdued. I don't know how you're going to make a living.
But he did make a living. His first one-man show at age 20 sold out the first day. His paintings now can bring $1 million. And Jamie was an artistic celebrity even before his first show. The family name made that unavoidable.
Suppose your name had been Browning and not Wyeth.
I think about that. I mean, I've thought about it as I've grown up. I seriously think I would paint. I mean, I think there's no question that I would paint. I mean, somehow I would find, I mean, granted, I grew up in a household where paint was lying around on the floor and brushes and so forth, so I certainly had the tools there. But I really think if I was born on a farm in Nebraska and my name was Browning, I'm sure I'd paint.
You told me you were out this morning sketching early. When you leave the house in the morning, did you go looking for something?
No. That's, I go months without painting or drawing. I'm always open to things, but I don't go looking, because if you look too hard, then you start to search and you start to pick and choose. I think a thing's got to come around and hit you in the back of the head, and then you look around and you think, Jesus, why don't I do it? You know, I don't think it's, just stay open. I don't do anything. And people say, well, why didn't you come to that party? Or why didn't you go to New York to that opening of that? You weren't doing anything. Well, maybe I wasn't, but maybe I was.
The International Wyeth exhibition, called An American Vision, opens next spring in the Soviet Union. It will be in Washington, D.C. in late summer, in Dallas in the fall, Chicago next winter, and in Japan, Italy, and England in 1988. 115 paintings from 3 men, father, son, and grandson, who have all spent most of their lives in a gentle Pennsylvania River Valley no more than 60 miles long.
1986 will be back in a moment with the story of an unspeakable charge and its lingering aftermath. And with Lucky Severson's warning, from the wild world of junk mail, 'tis the season to be swamped.
Well, I think the postal term for it is not preferential business mail.
If only things lasted longer. If only their warranties lasted longer. If only you had bought them with the American Express card. Because from now until December 31st, we will extend the free repair period of the manufacturer's warranty. In fact, we'll double it, up to an extra year. American Express introduces Buyer's Assurance. Now, if something breaks, it won't break you. Just use the card and, of course, register your purchases with Buyer's Assurance from American Express.
This high-performance drink cleans your fuel system to help maintain peak performance. STP gas treatment, the high-performance drink for your car.
Tums doesn't have it. Rolaids doesn't have it. Maalox Plus does. We have what you need for complete relief of excess acid, heartburn, and gas. Maalox for acid and heartburn, plus simethicone for gas. Get complete relief. Try Maalox Plus.
Thursday on Cheers, does Sam's Little Black Book tell all?
Well...
And on Night Court, it's a case of indecent exposure.
I see.
So did everyone else. Then on L.A. Law.
Honey?
Abby's long-awaited reunion with her son takes a tragic turn. L.A. Law, now on Thursday.
95% of Chevy Nova owners would recommend their new Nova to a friend. If that doesn't mean much to you, think about this. Of the cars you've owned, how many would you recommend to a friend?
new Chevy Nova. Reading the list of standard features on a new Chevy Nova can get pretty boring.
Standard, standard, standard.
But don't stop.
Standard.
It gets better at the end.
From Channel 4, this is a news update. Here is Jeff McAtee.
Good evening. President Reagan's spokesman says his boss would like to speak openly about his okay of arms shipment to Iran, but says he can't just yet. We'll explain on the scene at 10. We'll also tell you about an 18-year teaching veteran in Nashville who faces possible dismissal for abusing students. Bill Hall will update you on our weather, and Rudy will highlight the Hoosiers night in Nashville. Now this.
There's something for everyone on your gift list at Ashley Jewelers Christmas Sale. Save 20 to 60% on all of our fine jewelry and diamonds at Ashley Jewelers Brentwood Place and now in Paddock Place.
More news later on the scene at 10.
This has been a news update brought to you by Ashley Jewelers.
We live in an age of shocking charges, and one of the most shocking in its substance and shocking in that it should be made so often is the charge of child abuse, that an adult and sometimes a parent has taken sexual advantage of his very young child. We know now that it does happen, more often than we could have imagined. But are all these charges founded? What happens to the parent falsely accused of this most heinous offense? What happens to the child caught up in a nightmare no child should have to understand? As Maria Shriver's report shows, what happens is that between parent and child, there falls a terrible shadow.
Look at that, and purple.
And blue.
And blue. I see orange. Maybe
Larry Spiegel is sharing a precious moment with his 5-and-a-half-year-old daughter, Jessica.
Starlight.
It's the first year she's been permitted to visit with her father since he was accused of sexually abusing her.
All those colors.
You are charged with the sexual penetration of your daughter.
Yes.
Let's put our toes in the sand.
It was a Friday afternoon, and I had driven to my office, as I did almost every afternoon. I had no hint of what awaited me. I was approached from both sides by detectives who showed me their badges and proceeded to escort me to the patrol car where I was handcuffed. There was a prosecutor's investigator in that car waiting in the back seat, and she said to me, "You are under arrest for the sexual penetration of your infant daughter on or about December 3rd, 1983.
It was back then, in the midst of his divorce battle and a custody dispute, that Larry Spiegel, a New Jersey psychologist, faced a criminal charge of sexual abuse, a crime that carried a maximum penalty of 20 years in jail, a charge he says was completely unfounded. Why do you think those charges were leveled against you?
I'm not certain that I can speculate accurately about my ex-wife at the time, what her motives were or weren't. I think she may have honestly convinced herself that something was occurring. I think it's also possible that it was pure vindictiveness, a sense of trying to get back at me. It's happening all across this country. The phenomenon now of instant custody being granted the moment a parent yells child abuse.
If there's any reason, the slightest reason to believe the child might have been sexually abused, courts switch custody.
Doug Besheroff is outspoken about unfounded allegations. He was the first director of the National Center on Child Abuse.
Nationally, last year, 1.7 million children were reported as victims of child abuse and neglect. Of that number, child protective agencies go out and investigate and determine that about 65% of the reports are inappropriately made. They call them unfounded or unsubstantiated and close them. Research on those unfounded cases shows that 5 to 10% were deliberate lies.
So parents in custody battles are using the system and getting away with it?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Larry's troubles began when his daughter, then 2.5 years old, reportedly told her mother that Daddy had hurt her bummy, her genital area. The mother's concerns were eventually brought to the attention of the New Jersey Division of Youth and Family Services. They alerted the Morris County Prosecutor's Office.
all I can say is that there was probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed.
Mike Rubinaccio was an assistant prosecutor when the complaint was filed. He handled the state's case against Spiegel.
What was the evidence that made you think, yes, a crime has been committed here?
Both the victim in this particular case and the mother had been interviewed. There had also been some other medical information that was gathered, along with some information from the Division of Youth and Family Services.
And what did the doctor observe?
As I recall, he observed a circular redness, and I think he testified a pear-shaped redness in the vaginal area.
My ex-wife took my little girl at 2.5 years of age from doctor to doctor to doctor, and did a lot of doctor shopping, trying to get a physician or a psychologist to substantiate what she wanted them to substantiate.
And she eventually found one who did?
No, she never really did. She found one physician who was, I think, malleable enough for the prosecutor to get him to give a kind of a nebulous disclaimer of, well, we can't be certain that, that the child wasn't abused. I mean, I think that was essentially his strongest statement.
Larry's ex-wife, Valerie Mulvey, has never spoken publicly about this case, and she declined to be interviewed for this report, saying she believes the emotional risk to her daughter would outweigh any benefits. 2 weeks after Larry Spiegel was arrested and charged with the sexual abuse of his daughter, his former wife, Valerie, brought the child here to Valdosta, Georgia, where her parents lived. It would then be more than 2 years before Larry Spiegel was reunited with his daughter. What were those 2 years like in capsule form?
Hell. I wasn't permitted to see her. I wasn't permitted to call her. I wasn't permitted to write to her. My last words to Jessie, I said, "Daddy will see you on Wednesday, honey." And I never came Wednesday, and I never came the next Wednesday, and I never came for 2 years after that. The authorities would not even let me say to her, "Jessie, Daddy can't come see you now." Not even that.
If in fact she was hurt, the protection of the victim is an important factor.
Mike Rubinaccio was the one who successfully argued that Spiegel be denied contact with his child until the trial was over. That would take more than 2 years.
There was some discussion as to whether or not, as a result of his particular trade, which was a psychologist, whether he would have an influence on the child that might affect her ultimate testimony.
Do you promise to tell the truth? You're shaking your head. Is that yes or no?
Mike Rubinaccio persuaded the court to allow Jessica to testify at her father's trial. He and the defense attorney questioned her on closed-circuit television, which was shown in an open court. At the time, she was the youngest child ever to testify in a sexual abuse case in New Jersey.
Why don't you tell me how Daddy hurt you? Tell me. He stuck what? His face in your birdie? Can you show me where? Show me where. Come on. Wait, I can't really see, sweetheart. Show me where. Right there? Who did that to you?
My dad.
The lawyer asked her, "Where's your birdie? Show me." And she lifted up her dress.
Yes.
How could a child do that, come up with that, if it wasn't true?
The same way that that same child said to the judge, "My daddy did something bad, and my mommy didn't tell me to say that."
Can I ask you something?
What?
Did somebody ever tell you that Daddy was sick in the brain? Who told you that?
My mother.
Oh, no.
Some of the jurors we spoke with did say they felt Jessica may have been coached, and for them, that diminished the impact of her testimony. Larry says the allegations cost him dearly.
The stigma of having been accused of it. When I went to the store, I would walk out and hear the whispering behind my back.
Larry resigned his position as chairman of the psychology department at a local community college. His private patients left him, and his legal bills topped $100,000.
It's just not fair.
It isn't fair for the kids.
Larry now counsels others who feel they've been wrongly accused, and he's recently finished a book about his experiences.
My own child, I didn't see her for over 2 years.
Doug Besheroff wrote the afterword for Larry's book. He believes an increased awareness of child abuse has created a wave of public hysteria.
False allegations of child abuse are a very serious problem because it misdirects resources. It means that child protective agencies have to go out on cases that turn out to be untrue. It's also very unfair to the parents involved because they have to take the time and the money to defend themselves.
The child is a basket case. We've depleted all our savings and our college fund for our children at home.
I'm not going to admit to something I have not done.
I was accused of physically abusing my baby.
Parents who feel they've been unjustly accused have formed an organization called VOCAL. It stands for Victims of Child Abuse Laws. It's in 44 states, and its numbers are growing.
I was accused falsely of sexually molesting my 3.5-year-old daughter. I was accused of the most vile and heinous crime a parent could possibly ever commit against any human being, much less a child.
There are a lot of people that protest too much about their treatment, and there are a lot of people that are abusing their kids.
Tom Blattner is head of the New Jersey Division of Youth and Family Services. His agency is required by law to investigate every allegation of child abuse, and he is aggressively pursuing that mandate.
The home in the United States is the most dangerous place for a child. 95 to 98% of child abuse occurs within the home by parents who are supposed to be loving these kids. And I think we have a ticking clock.
Hotline, can I help you?
When a call comes in, it may seem like the most innocent thing in the world, and you know, it's the most respectable person in the community. The next thing you know, it's just a unraveling story of horrors. And I don't know any other way to deal with this situation as long as child abuse is occurring than to just take every case as it comes and look into it in a reasonable manner.
In the present situation, we've gone much too far. If 65% of all cases are closed, we have a massive intrusion on families.
Ultimately, you're talking about, are you coming down on the side of children, or are you coming down on the side of protecting adults? And I think that we're real clear. We are trying to stand up for the kids.
It was here at the Morris County Courthouse on January 16, 1986, that a jury found Larry Spiegel not guilty of sexual abuse. 2 months later, in a family court hearing, Larry was awarded joint custody of Jessica. He called that decision an enormous victory for parents who feel their parental rights are violated when they are falsely accused of abusing their children.
In the future, there will be regularly scheduled visits with his daughter, private moments that may help them understand the past.
The biggest regret is seeing my little girl having to cope with this and knowing that she will have to cope with it for the remainder of her life. She was separated from me without any idea of why her daddy didn't come to see her. The feeling of abandonment that she must have experienced, that to me is the tragedy.
Yours and hers.
Mine and hers, yeah.
Why do we make Future shine with tough acrylic? Because we know what your floor goes through in a day. Future stands up to any kind of traffic, even messy spills. Future with clear acrylic, the tough shine for your high traffic floor.
Flight 124, fly runway heading to 3000, right turn to 270. You are cleared for takeoff.
Introducing DuPont Certified Stainmaster Carpet. Stainmaster gives you a revolutionary new level of protection against stains and spills that's better than any other carpet you can buy today. Because you never know. New Stainmaster from DuPont Carpet Fibers.
The top of your TV should be more than just a shelf for your VCR, so Zenith designed a slim, new midsize that does just about everything but take up space. Zenith. Quality. How do you learn to operate a Zenith VCR? Easy. Our instruction tape shows you the way. Zenith. Quality.
There's a new short bed pickup on the road. It's called Comanche Sport Truck. It's the kind of truck only Jeep could build. And at just $64.95, it's also the lowest price pickup built in America. Jeep Comanche Sport Truck. It's worth a look.
On Give Me a Break, Mel's Holiday Crazy.
I am Christmas.
And on You Again.
Tiger Willows is going on the prowl.
Matt gets Henry a date with
56 women.
Then on St. Elsewhere. Will Ehrlich win Lucy?
That could go either way.
And live to regret it?
Wednesday.
It will be a year of change.
I was offered a promotion today. It would require a little more traveling.
You do what's best for you.
I want to do what's best for the family.
And it will be a year of conflict.
Come on now. You hit me now. That's right. That's right. Come on.
The Extraordinary Lives of Ordinary People. A Year in the Life premieres Monday.
Going out for the mail used to be one of the things we looked forward to every day. There might be a note from Aunt Martha, or the latest from a friend who'd moved away, or a birthday card, something personal, with our own names written on the envelope, in ink, in a hand we could recognize. But all that's changed.
What's in the mail now, especially at this time of the year, is stuff we never asked for, spewed out by machines and imprinted by computers that pretend to know us. Catalogs and come-ons and offers and catalogs and flyers and brochures and catalogs and coupons and computer mailings and catalogs. Lucky Severson, brave man, has gone out wading in the torrent of junk mail, and he reports back with this view of all that stuff that's addressed, Dear Occupant.
We're 3 floors south. The 2C must be all gone. Switch over to Saks.
128 and 130.
Turn 911.
Turn them on.
You can almost feel the tension here. What these men and women are doing can affect the lives of millions of Americans. If they let their guard down for even a minute, someone, somewhere, will get the wrong junk mail. This is a U.S. Postal Service bulk mail center, one of the biggest. Truth is, it's almost impossible to stop this kind of mail from coming to your house, and they know where you live.
The entire file of addresses, some 89 million addresses, are stored on IBM cards, and there's one address per card. Virtually all addresses in the country where American households are on the list.
Vince Giuliano's company is the largest mass mailer in the country. Each year, Advil sends out 4.5 billion pieces of mail. That's billion, and that's nothing. Last year, Americans received so many pieces of junk mail, if they were placed end to end, it would stretch all the way to the moon and back 15 times. Roberta Maneker is with the Direct Marketing Association.
It has grown enormously. It has really become a mainstream channel for the distribution of goods and services in America. It's acceptable, it's fashionable.
And it's everywhere. Imagine what it would be like to lug it around day after day after day, like mailman Mike Surma in Berea, Ohio. Did your back ever get tired?
Well, I've been ailing with back trouble. I've been going to a chiropractor for the last 6 months.
How many pieces of bulk mail do you think you've delivered in your lifetime?
Good God. I have the least idea, sir. Tons.
Maybe 500, 1,000, a million?
I think about a ton of this stuff.
Sometimes it takes a great effort just to stop junk mail from piling up all around you. My house here in Chicago is right next door to one that's going to be refurbished. It's vacant and has been for weeks, but the mailman keeps delivering junk mail there. I've asked him to stop. I've pleaded with him. But he says neither rain nor sleet nor vacant houses is going to stop him from delivering junk mail. It's become like Chinese water torture. Americans have always been #1 at the technology of mass production. Mass hamburgers, mass cars, mass mail. We are clearly the technological Goliath of mass mailing. Imagine a computer-controlled press that churns out 20 feet of 4-color junk mail in 1 second. This roll of paper may look like something in your home, but unlike bathroom tissue, it weighs 2,000 pounds, and they go through a roll of it every 30 minutes. And then they chop it, shuffle it, wrap it, and stack it, not necessarily in that order. In some cases, there is so much junk mail, post office employees work right out of the company warehouse. We were surprised at the togetherness of mass mailers in the post office. It's almost as if they're working for the same boss.
We netted about $30 million last year.
Postmaster Dean joins.
And you have to work really closely
You have
together.
to work close together.
If you didn't work close together, what would happen?
Oh, a dilemma, probably. The mail's got to go.
Without the revenue from junk mailers, the Postal Service might go broke. A first-class letter could cost a lot more. Revenues from bulk mailers account for 30% of the Postal Service's annual budget. That's why mail carriers might complain, but not too loudly.
There's a lot more mail than I thought there ever possibly could be. Third-class mail, bulk business mail, not junk mail.
Well, I think the postal term for it is non-preferential business mail.
This is bulk mail.
It's not junk mail.
No, junk mail is the wrong word to use.
Why is that?
Well,
Mike?
that's sort of slang.
Slang?
Yes, sir.
Does it help that this bulk mail is paying your salary? Does that help change your attitude a little bit?
It's known as bread and butter at the post office.
They work together so closely, mail carriers often inform junk mailers whenever you change your address. They even tell them which side of the street they walk down first, so the junk mailers can pre-sort their deliveries for them. Remember when your junk mail was simply addressed, Dear Occupant? Now it has your full name, including your middle initial, even your sex. What they have done is rented a list with your name on it. And when they compare that list with another and maybe another, they can learn a lot about you and your neighbors. Probably how much money you make, what kind of car you can afford, your taste in clothes. And it's very likely that your name is on at least one list, according to ACLU lawyer Jerry Berman.
Direct mailers are increasingly becoming very sophisticated at identifying each and every one of us. Our income patterns, the size of our households, what kind of cars we drive, our age, our occupation.
We put that information into a computer with a complex statistical analysis procedure to identify the unique neighborhood types in the country.
If you have a zip code, Sam Barton has a pretty good idea who you are, what kind of money you make, your education. And we are all categorized under cute little headings, like money and brains, furs and station wagons, bohemian mix.
Let me give you mine. 60614.
60614.
Bohemian mix.
Mixture of young, up-and-coming professionals in their 20s, early 30s.
His computer was right on about my neighborhood, so I gave him the zip codes of some famous Americans who might be interested to know what kind of neighborhood they live in.
Walter Mondale, 20016.
20016.
He's doing all right.
Money and brains.
Losing the presidential election has been very, very good to him. Okay, let's look at Jesse Jackson, 60649. Emergent minorities. That fits.
Dan Rather, 10028. Tom Brokaw, 10021. Peter Jennings, 10024.
These gentlemen all have selected different zip codes, but they're all classified in the urban Gold Coast, which again is the top of the line.
They're doing
urban
okay.
dwelling. Doing very, very well.
What are the chances that my name is not on the list somewhere?
I would say the chances are 0.
Psychologist Joseph Margolin says people sometimes actually like junk mail, maybe even need it to keep them company.
There are a lot of isolated people in this country and in this world. A lot of people who are eager to get some mail and don't have anybody to write to them, and at least you have something that the mailman drops every day.
You get a lot of it, don't you?
I surely do, an awful lot.
Do you like it?
Very much so.
Really?
I enjoy reading because I don't get out any.
Meanwhile, it just keeps coming.
Junk.
And Americans keep complaining about it.
Junk.
And sometimes we get carried away, like Clifford. He just loves to hate junk mail. At the present rate, there will be 4 times as much junk mail by the year 2000 as there is today.
Vision's range-top cookware by Corning withstands heat that turns ordinary saucepans into sauce. And unlike metal pans, they're perfect for the microwave. Vision's by Corning. It's visibly superior.
Makes you think of kisses and hugs. Gotta get a gun, gotta get a gun. Everyone is full of love. Gotta get a gun, gotta get a gun, gotta get a gun.
They have arrived at Sears, AT&T's new generation HD 5300 cordless phone with breakthrough technology that rivals traditional phone sound quality, and it's arrived with a Sears price of $169.99. And there's AT&T's most advanced trimline phone ever, the 1300, with speed dialing, volume control, and more, just $69.99. But get to Sears now before our newest arrivals. Make a quick departure. There's more for your life at Sears.
On Friday,
cancel everything.
2 super cop shows.
Doing my job.
2 hours of action.
Think about that.
2 all-new episodes.
We got armed robbery.
And murder.
American Dream.
We can work this out so nobody gets hurt.
2 of the hottest hits on TV. Miami Vice, followed by Crime Story. Friday. Saturday, Hunter and Dee Dee are taking the heat, tracking a deadly kidnapper. Will this mysterious killer make Hunter's day? You want to fight? I hope you do. Saturday.
Before we leave you tonight, a couple of updates. Last week, we profiled Clint Eastwood, whose new movie, Heartbreak Ridge, opened across the country. The reviews were generally favorable, except for the Defense Department, which, after lending technical support to the production, withdrew its approval because it felt the film portrayed Marines as too violent and too profane.
And the Democrats were true to form yesterday. Jim Wright, the congressman from Texas and the subject of our profile last week, has won unanimous approval from the Democratic majority as the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mr. Wright had no opposition.
That's our program for tonight. We won't be with you next Tuesday night, so we'll see you in 2 weeks on Tuesday, December 23rd.
Good night.
Coming next on the scene at 10, an 18-year Nashville teaching veteran is accused of abusing his students. The president says he'll be as open and truthful as he can be about armed shipments to Iran, but not just yet. Bill Hall makes some sense out of our sloppy, sloshy weather, and we continue Carla's Christmas countdown. It's all next on the scene at 10.
Sunday, celebrate a heartwarming Christmas at our house.
Merry Christmas.
Then on Valerie, when Dad's grounded at home, life's a scream.
I guess I can skip the aerobics this morning.
And on Easy Street, are Eleanor and Quentin gone for good?
Ding dong, the witch is dead.
All right!
Sunday.